Maybe. So I understand why some of these guys aren't here because of the LEC dinner. They're not all there.
I don't know. All right, my friends. Oh yeah, Rafael said he has to babysit because mega challah bake. So, what can we do? So we're learning Siman Shin Tes Vav. We're doing a review of Siman Tes Vav. No. About I sent out another one of these, but David Leib is not here. So.
Yes. Yeah. Unless you do it.
Unless you have it on your computer. All right, my friends, here we go. So the Av Malacha is Binyan. The Tulda is ohel. Asiyas ohel. A moment, please. Hello? Yeah, I'm a little bit sure. Maybe call mommy. Okay, bye. So, in terms of what is the difference between a binyan and an ohel? So, three explanations that I found. Number one is that a binyan is meant to actually be permanent, like forever, pretty much. Build a house forever. I mean, till Irma comes or who knows what, Hashem should protect. But it's basically supposed to be forever. On the other end, an ohel, it's understood that it's temporary, but it's still not very temporary. If it's very temporary, it's called arai. This is, somewhat temporary, a few months or whatever it is, like in the desert, whatever it is. Another difference is that the ohel is supposed to be binyan is supposed to be put together. Everything is supposed to be held together, nails and whatever. When it comes to ohel, even if it's not held together, as long as it's a protection and it's permanent for it to be daraisa, it's an ohel. Another difference is that a binyan is supposed to be connected to the ground. And ohel, not necessarily. Now, this is only according to Rashi, by the way, because according to Tosfos and other Rishonim, even Keli could have binyan. But according to Rashi, binyan has to be something connected to the ground. An ohel does not have to be connected to the ground. Okay. The Maisa, an ohel kavua, like we said, is a tulda of binyan, and it's daraisa. An ohel harai is only midrabanan. What is the difference between an ohel kavua and an ohel harai? So we said the Pri Megadim holds that anything that is 8 days or more is kavua, although we also had opinions that perhaps it has to be more than 30 days. So that's not exactly clear. But definitely it can't, if it's less than 7 days, it seems that it is definitely not kavua. Okay, just like you cannot put up an ohel harai, you can also not remove an ohel harai. I did come across an interesting halacha. And Rav Shlomo Zalman says, he's not sure about this, he questions it. You had an ohel, which was protective, and then the need for that protection became obsolete. It's no longer necessary. For whatever reason, you needed it for the mosquitoes. And now there's no more mosquitoes, whatever it is. Perhaps you're allowed to take it down because now it's not functioning as an ohel anymore. This is similar to what he says, by the way, about a mechitza hamateres. We know that if you make a mechitza, and you're allowed to make a mechitza, right? Obviously a temporary mechitza. If it's not mater, if it's not permitting something. If it is permitting something, then it's forbidden. Now, if the need for the permission, would that the word be? If the need for that permission is no longer, right, then you can take it down. Meaning to say, what would be an example of this?
Why?
me see if he gives an example of this. 1 second. 1 second. I mean, he doesn't give examples, but it would seem to me if, let's say, it was a mechitza that's mater tashmish, right? So after the fact, it's no longer necessary, right? Certainly in the morning, it's no longer necessary. So that's no longer functioning as a mechitza hamateres. So that would be allowed to take down according to Pshlim Zalman. However, interestingly, he says, if it's no longer necessary because the sun is not up, you had it there to protect you from the sun, and now the sun is no longer up, that's not considered obsolete because the sun is going to come back. Yes?
I mean, if from the first time, how can he put a tent for the mosquitoes to build it on Shabbat, Rabbi?
We're talking about building. We're talking about draping a sheet or something over you.
That's like a tent.
That's correct, but we're talking about taking it down, not putting it up. If it's already up and you want to take it down.
If it's up before Shabbat.
Yeah, or was it even a little bit up before Shabbat? Right, if something is a little bit up before Shabbat, you can add to it.
But if he said we don't know to remove that.
Exactly. The Chiddush of Shlomo Zalman is perhaps if you don't need it anymore, perhaps it's not considered an ohel anymore, and therefore perhaps you are allowed to remove it.
So what's happening if you need it after that? Mosquitoes coming back. You're allowed to put it back if you're after remove it?
No, you won't be able to put it back. You won't be able to put it back.
Unless
If you take it down, you won't be able to.
If you leave tefach, it's a different.
Yeah, that would be a better idea. I don't know why Shmuel didn't get the link. I sent it to him. Okay. Okay, so so if the oil already has one tefach protecting, you can add to that tefach. Now, if that tefach is rolled up like a roll, then you cannot open that roll because that roll is not serving the function of a protection. That roll is serving the function of being able to open it when you actually need it.
But if the roll is open tefach, you're allowed to continue, right?
If it's open at tefach, if it's actually unrolled at tefach, yes, then you're allowed to continue. So here's an interesting thing that I came across in the Dir Shulchan Aruch, quoting the Chazon Ish. Let's say you put up the roll and you think to yourself, you know what? I'm not going to unroll this roll. I want this roll to be a protection. I want this roll, just this little slice of protection on the side here, just to cover me if I'm on the side. So then he says, then you can add to that roll because the protection, it can be a roll. Why not? It's only when you're planning to open the roll. And therefore, it's not really serving as a protection per se. It's just there for you to open up later. So that's why it's not the beginning of a protection. And then he goes in and he says a bigger chiddush. You have to listen to this one. He says, you have a roll there from before Shabbos. You were planning to open it. Change your mind. You say, you know what? I'm not going to open the roll. I'm going to leave the roll there. And because I'm leaving it there, it's now serving as a protection. It's not serving as something to be unrolled. You don't have to do anything to make that decision. You just decide you're leaving it there. Well, now you have a tefach already of protection. You could take something else and add to that. Nice chiddush, no?
Yes, because it's only a roll. And
Chazon Ish.
So that roll, he want to remove it. He did not remove it, and he leave it over there. And
no, normally you would want to unroll the roll. Chazon Ish says if you're not planning to unroll the roll, or even if you decide on Shabbos not to unroll the roll, you can consider that roll a protection. Then you can add to it.
Okay.
But if you decide not to unroll it before Shabbos, and it is a protection, can you still unroll it on Shabbos?
Yeah.
No.
So
Does it become muksa in a sense?
That's not a question of muktzah. It's by unrolling it, you're showing that it's not a protection at that point. And therefore, it's considered that you're making the whole thing from the beginning.
Okay, but you can still add other machatzelets to it.
Exactly. You can add something else.
But your kavana has to be before Shabbos.
No. That's the first chiddush is he says if you decide before Shabbos. Then he says, you know what? Even if you change your mind on Shabbos, you could still use that concept.
If you change your mind before Shabbos,
Or if you decide,
What do you
if
mean?
you,
you decide before Shabbos that he's going to do that.
To
And
leave it
before
there.
Shabbos starts, he decides, no, I'm not going to use it.
You can change your mind again.
you can still change
That's
your
what he's
mind
saying.
back on Shabbos.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
You can change
So
your
you don't
mind.
have to designate it at all.
No, that's his final analysis. Okay, now Shlomo Zalman comes along and says an interesting point, that when you have a tefach and you want to add to that tefach on Shabbos, you can only add from that side where the tefach is. You can't add from the other side, because then it doesn't look like you're adding. It looks like something new. On the other end, he says if you at once just throw on an addition and it covers the whole thing from that previous part to the end, that's fine. But if you added it slowly by pulling it, you know what I'm saying? Then it has to be from where the original tefach was.
Otherwise, if the original is there, and you stand here and just throw it across.
You can't throw it across from that direction. It has to be either from that direction
This direction.
or all at once, the whole thing at once. Another chiddush is that you can add something temporary to something permanent.
For example, the wall.
Exactly. A wall is the beginning of a wall. So you can add, in case of a mechitza materes in general, there's no problem to add a wall, temporary wall, if it's not making something permissible. But if it is, it's not allowed. But if you're adding to an existing wall, that's okay, even though the existing wall is permanent. As long as your addition is temporary, that's okay.
Can you change the position? Let's say the opening is right there. Can you start from there coming this way?
No, that's not an addition, that's something new.
What do you mean from the old?
That's something new.
No, I mean, instead to continue this way, you come from the door that way.
That's something new.
If it's part of the wall, then.
It's part of, this is part of the wall, right? Let's say here.
What are you adding?
Look, this is here, right? From that corner, you can continue right?
From that corner, you can continue either that way
Because it's
or
continuous.
that way.
Because you can
continue from the
do
wall.
either way, but not the door.
Not the door. The door is nothing. The door is not the beginning of the wall. The door is the door,
It's a chiddush, right?
if you want it to be. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about a mechitza hamateres, a mechitza that makes something permissible. So here's the thing. A mechitza that does not make something permissible, because it's temporary and it's not really protecting you, main protection is from the top. On the side, it's not a real protection, so therefore it's mutter. Of course, if it's permanent, that goes without saying it's forbidden. But temporary is not forbidden. Now, if it is making a halachic space, so then it's also because the fact that it's creating a halachic space, that makes it important. And we learn many examples of a halachic space. For example, if it's making a sukkah into a sukkah needs a certain amount of walls. If it's making a sukkah kosher by being that third wall, for example. If it's making a domain considered a private domain on Shabbos, right? You need 4 walls. If it's making a domain, a part of a room separate from the other part, in terms of a couple being allowed to be together, if there's farm on the other side. So that's an example. Or if there's a light on the other side, also to separate it into 2 rooms. And I came across in the Dir Shulchan Aruch other cases that we did not discuss, but they're worth mentioning, especially because you get to learn other things on the side. It's always nice to learn extra little tidbits on the side. So you know when somebody's davening Shemona Esrei, you're not going to walk in front of them. We learned that, those of you that were here for Hilchos Tefillah. So if you create a space in front of them, a mechitza, that you can walk because there's a mechitza.
Like Rabbi, you got chairs here, chairs here, chairs here. So he's praying here, and the person pray here. It's chairs. So
Chairs is not a mechitza. Chairs is not a mechitza. Mechitza has to be at least 10 tefachim tall.
So how do you pray in the synagogue? All of them is going in this direction, and you behind on the other one.
You can pray. I'm talking about walking. You're praying. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about somebody's praying. You want to walk in front of him. Shh, walk.
Oh, okay. Sometimes that I see people walking.
Yeah.
Not allowed.
No.
Unless it's a mitzvah overet. Unless they have to. Like, for example, the Kohen has to wash his hands. The Levi has to wash the Kohen's hands.
Or you're wedging into one of those shtibelach minions of the neighborhood, right?
So how do you do the mechitza? By your mind?
And
So, no, here, his chiddush is that you're allowed to create a mechitza. If you have something that's 10 tefachim tall and goes, down till the ground, you can slide it in front of him, and then you can walk, because,
Walk the other side.
no, you're
wait,
walking.
hang on a second.
It creates a separate rishos.
So you find a divider, slide it in front of him?
Yeah.
But isn't that also disrupting his?
Praying.
I thought part of it was you're blocking his. You're creating an obstacle in front of his tefillah.
Well, a wall, by the way, is not an obstacle. A wall is actually
Right.
perfect. You're
No, I
supposed to
understand, but
daven
you
in front
put
of
a
a wall.
wall in front of his wall.
So it's another
And
wall.
wasn't there a distance, I thought, also?
Four amos.
4 amos?
4 amos,
So
yeah.
if it's beyond 4 amos, you can still walk.
Yeah, you can still walk.
So I'm serious, how do you deal with those shtibla crowded situations that
It's tough.
no one abides by?
It's tough.
But if we're talking about,
Slithering through walls and wedging in.
if we mention about the praying and
Right.
Amidah and interrupting, if somebody behind you in all of that in the Amidah and he's in the Amidah, you're allowed let's say it interrupted the other guy and he's already started from the beginning. You're allowed to say, "Excuse me." Or,
Excuse me, what? They should stop davening? Well,
no, but
oh, he's making noise, you mean?
yes,
Oh, I don't know. That's a difficult one. I wouldn't tell him in middle of Shemon Esrei, but after Shemon Esrei, I would maybe.
you're allowed to.
No,
Maybe.
that's I hate that.
Because
That's the one noise I can't stand.
Just speaking of moving walls, I'm just remembering, totally off the topic. There was a yeshiva where they were having a strike because they didn't like the food or whatever it was. So they were breaking into the kitchen and making all kinds of trouble. So they put up a camera so they should be able to catch the kids. So then the camera records one night how there's like 3 mattresses walking along the camera. And then there's like a sheet put over the camera, and that's the end of the recording. Anyway, speaking of moving walls, if someone is directly behind you in the Amidah, you're allowed to take 3 steps to the side. I believe you are. You can't take 3 steps back towards him, but I believe you're allowed to take 3 steps to the side, yes.
That's it, what?
If somebody's standing behind you,
Oh, okay.
still down in Shemon Esrei, within 4 amos, you can't go back into their space, but you could go to the side.
In the middle of
Well,
your
there's nobody on the side.
If there's nobody on the side, yes. Sorry?
What if it's you already started davening Shemona Esrei?
No, he's talking about if you finished. You
Oh,
finished.
you finished.
The person behind you is not finished, and he's within 4 amos. You can't go back into his
Right.
space, but you can go to the side.
Something else that happened.
Yes, indeed. Here's another one. Another interesting thing. You're not allowed to daven if there's a bad smell in your area. In addition, if the bad smell has a source,
4 feet, right?
4 amos.
Oh.
If the bad smell has a source, let's say a dirty diaper of a kid, you have to be 4 amos from where the smell finishes.
That means outside.
Whatever. So here he has another chiddush. If-
Baby, doesn't count.
Depends how young. If he's old enough to eat regular food, in a regular amount of time, then it counts.
Maybe less than 2 years.
Depends how fast he eats. If he's old enough to eat regular food quickly, then
If
that
your
makes
neck
it-
is beseder.
your neck depends on the age.
Only
Depends
your
on the
neck,
age.
sir. Only your neck.
Depends on the age. Usually your neck is too young. Usually your neck is too young.
Yes.
Is it that if he's old enough or he is eating regular food? Because a lot of times they nurse kids.
Yeah, nurse.
I think if he's old enough.
Where they-
I think it goes by his actual age, not by whether he is personally eating it. I think so.
If you know
Anyway.
until 2.5 years, only nurse.
No, it doesn't go by him. It goes by that age. If he's at the age that he could eat normal food in a normal amount of time, then you have to already go. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Anyway, so he says this is not really our discussion, but he says just on the side. So if you make a mechitza, then you don't need to go 4 amas away. I mean, if the smell reaches you, obviously it's a problem. But if it's in a different rishus and the smell doesn't reach you, then there's no din of 4 amas. So that's another mechitza hamateres. That's also mechitza that's accomplishing a halachic accomplishment. And finally, an interesting
You're
one.
allowed to do it, you're not allowed.
On Shabbos, you can't create such a mechitza. During the week, it's a nice thing to know about. But on Shabbos, you can't create such a mechitza. Now,
There's a mechitza already there.
yeah,
And you can move it.
no.
Then
If it's already between you and the, no. If it's already between you and the person, even if it doesn't fill the whole thing, you can add to it. But if it's not in the correct position and you have to move it to the new position, that's not good.
Rabbi, we said we don't know to do gag, roof. What about the talit mechitza?
For what? For what?
For mechitza to move, he's praying and I praying. I want to go to the other side. I have no way. And I try to go to the bathroom or something like that. Talit mechitza?
I don't know if a talis works because a talis is not a mechitza al pi halacha.
Al pi halakha.
A mechitza has to be a something that goes from 10 tvachim till the floor and doesn't flap in the wind. It doesn't
There's
flap
no
in the
window
wind.
with it.
Doesn't make a difference. It has to be strong enough that it would not flap in the wind.
So you stuck. Or you
Bathroom
can't-
is a mitzvah. Bathroom is a mitzvah.
bathroom is this.
An important mitzvah.
Okay.
One that is very timely. Okay, so here's another interesting thing he brings. On Pesach, if a person has chametz in their house, even if they don't own it, there has to be a mechitza 10 tfachim in front of it to remind you not to eat it. That's why you have it in a cupboard. That's good. Seal the cupboard also, but it's in a cupboard. Usually the cupboards have a wall 10 tvachim. But that's why, by the way, you can't keep a shelf in your fridge or your freezer and say this is chametz. That shelf is chametz. This shelf is not. I'm selling that shelf. It doesn't work because it has to be in an area that's behind a wall of 10 tvachim.
If you take a 10 tefachim, it's gone.
I'm saying, so you can't have it. You can't have it.
Poor people, what they do.
They don't keep chametz in the refrigerator
Yeah,
for Pesach.
But for poor people, they have no money, and this is the only food they can keep.
What chametz do you need in your fridge?
I have no
Explain to me.
idea. I'm
Okay,
thinking.
when you have an idea, you get back to me.
What? Okay.
Okay,
Let me see.
think about it. Next.
They don't have a lot of food to start.
Exactly.
So they-
Exactly.
They don't have to save anywhere.
Okay, so an interesting thing he says on Pesach, you can't create that mechitza because that's a halachic requirement. So you can't do it on the yontif of Pesach. Chol HaMoed, yes, but you can't put it up on Pesach.
But if you find some chametz that you didn't know was
No, it says clearly you just cover it. You can't make a mechitza
Where
with
do you find chametz, Rabbi? You sold all the chametz, and all the chabira is gone. So how can you find chametz?
it. Happens. It happens. Maybe not to you, Baruch Hashem. But
Must
it
you
happens.
chametz you find, Rabbi?
How? Akasha famaisa, as they say in Yiddish.
It might belong to the goy, though.
It might belong to the guy. That's
Yeah,
correct.
it belongs to God because you sold it. So
It belongs to the guy, so you can't move it on Yantif. It's
Stealing.
no, it's moving is not stealing.
And you cannot make
But it's
muktzah.
muktzah. It's muktzah. Can't make a mechitza in the either, so you just cover it. And after Yontif, you'll move it into the room.
You're allowed to cover it, like a gag?
Yeah. Not a gag. Cover it with a cup.
Blanket.
Whatever.
Ah, it's a small, it's not too big.
Whatever it is. Okay. Now, here's the thing, my friends. If you have a tefach of that mechitza already made before, you can add to it, even though the tefach on Shabbos Yontif, even though that tefach was not allowing the activity. It's only when you add that you create the full wall. So it's an interesting thing. What makes it important is the fact that it makes it permissible, that it changes the reshus, right? Nevertheless, you can add to it in such a way that it's going to make it permissible because you started before.
I have a question. Let's say here.
Got that 1 second. It's clear? Understand that? Yeah, go ahead.
Let's say this room here, I'm going to put tefach like this, okay? Now, if I want to go to the other room to put tent over there, so not tent, like can I continue from here all the way to the other room? If
What?
I have a tefach here in this room, and I want the cover to be over there.
No, not in the next room. Continue to the end of this room, not the next room.
Only in that room.
Yeah. Okay, so Julia Seni, which I think is Shmuel Karbel, as I just think it is. Two cute kids here. So is asking, what if within 4 amas, to the side of him, can you go into his space diagonally? I don't think so. I don't think you're supposed to cross into that space at all, even diagonally, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not 100% sure about that. Can a dark curtain be considered a mechitza for shul? Yeah, why not? And finally, taped up cupboards are considered a mechitza. Oh, it's Raphael. Oh, okay. There we are. Can taped up cupboards be considered a mechitza? Yeah, well, the doors of the cupboards are what makes it the mechitza. The tape is just to remind you not to enter there. But the door of the cupboard is the mechitza. So here's the thing. Curtain mechitza flaps in the wind. No, that's not a mechitza. I don't believe that a mechitza that flaps in the wind would be good for chametz. So you need to put it behind a cupboard that has an actual door. You wouldn't just hang a curtain in front of the cupboard. Oh, for shul. For shul. The kids are asleep before. What's going on? Why can't you talk?
I put myself on mute. I forgot I had the option.
Okay. For shul, yes, actually, that is permissible for shul. A shul does not need a halachic mechitza. A shul just needs a practical mechitza. Actually, this answers the question that is asked about what we said, that you can put up a mechitza for a drasha between men and women. So they ask here, in the Dirshu Shulchan Aruch, what's the pshat? If it's forbidden to do a davar shebekdusha with a mixture of men and women, so the mechitza is halachically necessary. So why is it not considered a mechitza hamateras? And he answers that you don't need a mechitza per se between men and women. It's for tznius. You just need to make sure that they cannot see each other. So therefore, mechitza that flaps in the wind would be okay. And that's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Okay.
The Reb mentioned the taped up cup, the fridge, putting a shelf, or let's say like in the freezer. Many people I've seen put taped up shelves in their freezer for non-Pesach things. They tape it up to say non-kosher for Pesach.
I don't believe that's okay. Yep, go ahead.
Right. So you said that there had to be an actual mechitza. But why is a cupboard a mechitza?
The wall of the cupboard is a mechitza.
Right. It doesn't have to be a certain height.
But what if you wrapped the chametz in double?
Whoa, 1 second. It has to be 10 tvachim, yes. It has to be a certain height, 10 tvachim.
Yeah, but the cupboard is like, it's not 10 tefachim.
Then it's a problem.
What cupboard is 10 tefachim tall?
What's 10 tvachim? 10 tvachim is 3 feet.
Yeah, but a covered door is not 3 feet.
If it's not,
In your kitchen, every cupboard is 3 feet.
probably, yeah. 3 feet, yeah, probably. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if you double wrapped the chametz? Kind of like we said, if you put two covers over the sporum, then you could use.
Doesn't say that for chametz.
Oh, that chametz is a different problem.
Doesn't say that for chametz. No, it says it has to be behind a mechitza of 10 tefachim.
Okay, so it doesn't have. Okay. And what did you say about the mechitza, like in the shul? That has to be tight. In other words, because it could flap. Huh?
It's not tight. The mechitza in shul just has to make it that you can't see the women. It doesn't have to be tight.
But if it flaps, then you could see through possibly. But
yeah, well, the fact that it flaps in the wind doesn't mean it's going to flap in shul. You don't really have wind in shul. It means the fact that it would be able to flap if there was a wind is not a problem.
Okay.
I'm going back to the Pesach refrigerator. All machmir, or some of them they're not machmir?
I have not seen any posek that says you can do that.
None of them.
I don't claim to know all of the posek. I'm just saying I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Well, if you have two doors like side by side, a freezer and a refrigerator,
yeah,
you can make one that has chametz.
Yes, that's correct. Close it off and tape it up. That's correct. That is correct. Okay. Now, speaking of mechitzas, you are allowed to hang a mechitza, like a curtain, if it's only for tznius. So let's say you have a rod that's already in the doorway, and you want to hang a mechitza over that, so that's okay. Now, the Chazon Ish says, nevertheless, it can't be that you're planning to leave it there indefinitely, because that's like a permanent addition. That's like a temporary addition. But nevertheless, also, by the way, whenever it comes to adding a mechitza like that, you have to make sure that it does not create a space of a tefach as you're putting it up. You have to put it up very carefully to make sure that it doesn't create that space. An interesting thing that I have here in my notes from 7 years ago. Was it 7 or no? Well, however many years ago I did this with the other group, is that an Aron Kodesh, because it has usually the volume, is that the word? It has the volume of 3 amas tall by 1 amma in width and breadth. With the length, whatever it's called. So basically, it is considered connected to the ground. So therefore, it has the strictness of something connected to the ground. And therefore, any addition to it would be problematic in terms of boina. So therefore, like you wouldn't be able to put up the rod. If the rod fell off, and you're going to attach onto which you want to attach the parochas, that you can't, because that rod itself is like adding to something connected to the ground. That's not allowed. So also, even the mechitza itself, it's only permissible if you're simply draping it over the rod. If you have to put it through like little holes or whatever, that's like a more permanent addition. That's problematic on Shabbos, because it's like you're attaching to something connected to the ground. That's a serious thing.
It's part of the building.
It's considered part of the building. It's part of the building, how much more so? But even if it's not, if it's that size, so it's considered connected to the ground, and you wouldn't be allowed to add anything that is stuck into it, as opposed to just to hang it without having to stick it in would be okay. Hanging pictures would also be allowed on the wall, because that's not really part of the building.
I have a question back on number
Just one second. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're learning. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Daniel.
Yeah, I have a question back on 7A on the sheet here. It says you're allowed to make, even it makes something prohibited or now permissible. I know you could add to an existing, but I didn't understand that you are allowed to make. That sounds like you're making something new.
No, I have to take out the make. I don't know how that got in there. Got to take
Okay.
out. We're allowed to add. Allowed to add. It's not a Google Doc. If this were a Google Doc, I could share all the changes with you immediately. But that not being the case, you'll have to change it yourself. 7A should say you're allowed to add to an existing mechitza, even if the addition makes something prohibited, not permissible. Very poor English. Even if the addition makes something permissible which was previously forbidden. Okay, got it?
Thanks.
No problem. All right. Okay, so we discussed boats, wagons, anything like that that has these curved rods going over them. If those rods are a tefach wide themselves, then you can add. If not, if they are within 3 of each other, that creates a lavud kind of situation, halachically connected, and therefore you can add to that as well. But if not, it is a problem. That's pretty much clear. Okay, let's talk a little bit about making a roof and walls that you're not using for protection, right? Until now, we're talking about using it for protection, right? And basically, we said you cannot make even just a roof without any walls. You can't make it unless you already had started making it before Shabbos. Actually, you know what? I have to go back to something for a minute. I have to go back to a sukkah. Because we said you're allowed to add to a mechitza wall as long as there's a tefach already there, even though when you add, it's actually going to accomplish the permissibility of it because you already have a tefach. So Reb Shlomo Zalman says that does not apply to a sukkah.
Why?
Why is a good question. He's not sure why. He just proves it from various sources. He suggests that the reason why is that the purpose of the tefach, in case, let's say, of the Sefer Torah or the Sfarim, let's say for the couple, is to have privacy. So the privacy you started to accomplish with one tefach, then you're accomplishing more privacy. When it comes to a sukkah, it's not about privacy. It's about a sukkah. And a sukkah, until you have the actual measurements of a sukkah, it's nothing. You didn't accomplish anything with that tefach. It's either a sukkah or it's not a sukkah. When it comes to the mechitza that's for tznius, even though you need to have a mechitza, but it is still a din of tznius, so therefore a little bit of tznius is the beginning of it. But a sukkah has its own status of a sukkah.
A sukkah, you can have with 2 on a piece of wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're adding to a piece of wall,
Yeah.
Well,
once you have the 2 and a bit,
so
you're good. You can add because those extras.
Adding from scratch.
Yeah, those extras are actually not adding anything at all. Yeah. So that's a chiddush. Another chiddush about sukkah. This is interesting. Is that he brings in the Deer Shura thing from Rav Karelitz, that if it's a sukkah whose walls are swinging walls. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Walls that you can pull in and pull out,
Accordion?
accordion walls, something like that. He says that you can do because that's considered like it's already there.
Also,
Just like we see the roof of the sukkah that's retractable, you can put it back.
Also, it's going all around like this, it's okay? Accordion is, you can pull it all, it's okay.
That's what it would come out. Although based on Reb Shlomo Zalman, it's interesting. I wonder if he's arguing with Reb Shlomo Zalman. Not sure about that. Okay.
About these accordion walls, you're saying, but I mean, you still have to have the minimum shear. If the accordions are less than the minimum shear, then you can't open them. Can you?
He's saying that you can.
Really? Who's
Yeah.
Rabbi Shlomo Zalman? You said?
No, Rabbi Karelitz is his name.
Chazanish.
No, his nephew. Chazanish didn't have any children. He has a nephew in Bnei Brak.
Oh, right. Okay.
And he's of the opinion that if the accordion walls are already in place, so opening them up is not like you're accomplishing anything new. Even though before they're open, you don't have the sheer sukkah, and afterwards you do. But it's like it's already there. You're just opening it.
Well, that's probably Reb Chaim Kanievsky then.
No, Kanievsky is the Stipler's son. Chazanish's nephew. The Stipler was his brother-in-law. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky is also his nephew, but it's from a different side. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to talk about when you do something which is not for protection. So when you create a roof that's not for protection, if there are no walls, that's no problem. Even if there are walls, if the walls are already there and you're just putting the roof onto them, that's also not a problem. The only problem is if you create both the walls and the roof, even if you're not doing it for protection, nevertheless, it still looks like an ohel and therefore should not be done. However, because it only looks like an ohel, it's not an actual ohel, we have a few leniencies. Specifically, we have the leniency that you can do it in an unusual way, out of order. That means if you put the roof there first and then the walls, that's not the usual way, that is allowed. Another leniency is that this is only a problem if you need the space for something, even though it's not for protection, but you're using the space in some way. But if you would not be using the space at all, then it would be allowed. So, for example, we said you cannot create you cannot put a bed together. I mean, besides the question of building when it comes to putting a bed, if you're going to do it tight, but let's say it's not tight, whatever, it's not a problem. But if there are at least two walls and a top, and that top was not tefach spread out from before, you cannot put it together in the normal way. You cannot put the walls here and then put the bed on top. If the wall's already there, you can, but if not. Why? That's because they used to use the space under the beds, maybe people still do, to put their stuff, to put your shoes or whatever else. So therefore, that's considered that you need the space. Nevertheless, you could do it in an unusual way, which would be to first suspend like the mattress or whatever it is that you're putting on top, and then put the bed underneath. Now, in a case where you don't use the space in between at all, for example, if you have a table with four walls, so you can't even put your feet there if you wanted to. There's nothing, you're not doing anything in that space. So then you could create it in the normal way. First walls, then mechitza. Anyway, but all of this is only a problem in the first place if you're moving the walls there. If the walls are already sitting there, you're allowed to come along and put something onto it. And that we learned from Siman Reish Nun Gimel way back a few months ago, where we said you're allowed to put a pot onto the top of a stove. Even though that pot is going to be kind of acting like a roof over the walls of the stove, that's not a problem because the walls of the stove are already there.
It's going to be absolute after a while, right?
Maybe.
We don't know. Anything will be
That's a question you have to answer.
That's why we study all this.
Exactly, and therefore you should know the answer.
We don't allow to put any, let's have a fire, and you want to put pot for water to make a tea. You cannot put it close to the fire, Rabbi.
No, so give me a case. Give me a case when you're allowed.
Ohel.
Rachel, they could do anything, so what's that going to help?
Anybody has an idea?
Put it top, like that, on top of your food.
If what?
Put a pot, put away and put your pot with food on top.
That's an idea. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's an idea. You can put a pot and then put your food on top of it, as long as it's dry and fully cooked. Yeah?
It's not considered hashmana.
Atmana, no.
It's not considered.
Not considered atmana, no.
We're talking about water. Right? Liquid.
You're talking about water. I'm not talking about water.
Uh,
I didn't say anything about water. Okay, the point is there are many cases that you're allowed to put a pot on a thing on Shabbos. The case I was going to give is chazara, where it was there before, and you took it off, and you're putting it back with all the conditions. You kept it in your hands, all the things. What about oil? Oil's not a problem because you're not creating the walls. Okay. Now, in terms of the case that I was talking about, where you have the bed, any case you're not allowed to make it, you're also not allowed to take it apart. So if you have a bed like that, you're not allowed to take it apart on Shabbos because the walls and the roof look like an oil, and therefore you couldn't take it apart unless you leave one tefach there.
the sardine, you allowed to spread it out
On top of your mattress?
on the bed. It was
Are you
there-
allowed to make your bed on Shabbos? You tell me.
No. There was
They're gonna use it on-
before Shabbat. I make it clear. When I wake up in the morning, it's messy,
Okay.
and you come for after a synagogue. You're gonna rest it a bit. You can allow to stir
You
it
tell
out.
me. I want to hear from you.
I don't remember we studied that, Rabbi.
We did study it many times. Well, not many times, at least once.
Can you make your bed on Shabbat?
Can you make your bed on
Yes, if you're
Shabbos?
gonna use it on Shabbat,
Right. Is that not considered making an oil?
the space, the space.
Is a
space-
tefach?
There's no
Is a
space in
tefach.
between, that's correct.
Also, it's a tefach.
There is no space in between. There is no space in between. Your blanket is going right on top of your mattress,
There's no.
just like a tablecloth.
Are you going under that, Rabbi?
So what? Your body
There's
is
enough
not,
space.
your body is not considered creating an oil.
Oh, okay.
Just like when you go under your shirt. You go under your shirt, yeah? That's not an oil, that's your clothing. If you're gonna spend time in that room and you want it to look nice, then yes. But only if you're gonna spend time there. Otherwise, Shabbos doesn't mind if your bed is dirty. Shabbos doesn't mind. If you're gonna be spending time in that room and you want it to look nice for Shabbos, then yes.
To the apartment.
Yeah. Okay, now, the Taz is of the opinion, something important. Actually, before we say the Taz, I'll just mention the example of another example of a space you don't need. We said is if you're putting Sfarim on top of other Sfarim, so that you have two Sfarim, and then you're putting a third one on top of it, that space is not needed. So that's allowed. Now right? Two Sfarim on top of, one on top of two. Right? You see that little space in between? Even if it is a tefach, by a tefach, which is, by the way, I forgot to say the whole definition of an oil, is only if it covers a space of at least a tefach cubed. Tefach by tefach by tefach. If it doesn't cover that space, it's not called an oil at all. The point is that if it does cover that space, then it is a problem. But over here, it's not a problem because you don't need to use that space for anything. So that's not considered even resembling an oil.
But if you were doing that because you wanted the space, then you wouldn't be allowed to.
One more time, what?
If you were putting swarm so that there's a space underneath and you wanted to use that space.
If you want to use that space, then it's a problem. Yeah. Rafal asks, what if you are OCD and you always want your bed made? It will cause the person discomfort mentally. I think it's okay. If it's really the case. I think it's okay. OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. Like people who have to wash their hands all the time because they feel dirty. People who just have some things that has to be just so.
So what are you allowed to do?
Rafal was asking, is he allowed to make his bed because it bothers him that his bed is not made?
We said if he spend the time.
No, he's asking if he's not going to spend the time.
All right.
He just bothers him. In his mind, he can't handle it, that his bed is not clean.
So it's okay for him.
I think so. So,
This is called ohel, no? Shabbos.
a little bit, yeah. Okay, so so I was going to say the Taz is of the opinion that says that even if you don't need the space, if you have 4 walls and a roof, that's also anyway. Because 4 walls and a roof is essentially considered a protected space. And you'll probably find a use for it. So even if you don't specifically intend to use it, it's forbidden.
So you have 4 walls and you put something on top, and you have no way of getting into it at that point.
Right, but you could pick it up and put something in. That being said, even according to the Taz, it's only a problem if you're creating those walls. You understand? If they're there from before, it's no problem. And if you make it in an unusual way, it's also no problem.
What happens if you have 3 walls?
3 walls is only if you actually need the space. There he agrees with the Magen Avraham and others. And by the way, the Alter Rebbe does not quote that Taz at all. The Mishnah Berurah does and says better to be strict like that opinion. Alter Rebbe doesn't quote it. It seems like he does not hold it. Okay, so just like we discussed the space under a bed, also when you are setting up barrels in your wine cellar, same thing, because the space in between the barrels is important for the air to get through and the barrels shouldn't go bad. So therefore you can't just put 2 barrels there and then a third one on top because you're creating a little space. Hold that one and then somebody else comes and puts the other 2 and then you're good. Okay, in terms of a folding, it's good to know when you make your wine cellars and wherever you make them. Now, when it comes to folding things, folding chairs, folding tables, folding standards, folding chuppahs, all those things that are all connected from before, and you're just opening them up, in all of those cases, you're allowed to, again, we're not talking about when it's for protection. All of these are not for protection. The table is for a table. The chair is for a chair. The stander is for a stander. And the chuppah is for ceremonial services. It's not for an actual mechitza. You don't need any protection from it. It's just a ceremonial thing. So with all of those cases, you're allowed to open those things up. You're allowed to open up the folding table, folding chair, whatever, even if you're creating walls and a top, that's no problem. Because the fact is that it's already there, you're just opening it up. You're not considered to be creating it. So this leads us to the discussion about a sukkah cover that the Ramah brings down from the Maharil, that you're allowed to cover a sukkah on Yom Tov Sukkos, or Shabbos of Sukkos for that
If it
matter.
was covered with tefach.
No, even if it wasn't covered with Tavach, if that roof is attached. because it's not considered like you're creating something new. It's considered like you're
To the wall, attached to it.
attached to the sukkah wall. You have sukkah walls, and attached to one of the walls, you have hinges with a door, with a roof that goes back and forth. So that's allowed. Why? Because that's considered to be like a door. It's like a door of your sukkah. You have a door in the house. You have a door on the roof of your sukkah. So the point is that this is related to the folding table, folding chair. It's considered already part of it. You're not creating it. It's already part of it. Now, once we're talking about a sukkah, we may as well mention that if the part that you want to add is not going to be a tefach away from the schach, if it's right on top of the schach with no tefach in between, you can put it up anyway, because that's not considered a mechitza. That's not considered a ohel, excuse me. Just like the tablecloth over your table, that's not an ohel, because it's directly over the table. So the thing that covers the schach directly is no problem. Or, like Yoram was mentioning it, if it has a tefach spread out already from before, then you can add to it even if it's more than a tefach away from the schach, and even if it's not attached. Nevertheless, you can still add it based on the principle of adding to the tefach. Okay, so this will lead us right now to discussing the question of a baby carriage. Are you allowed to open a baby carriage? The Chazon Ish says yes, because it's just like the folding chair. The baby carriage, we're talking about if the roof is already attached to it, you know what I'm saying? Not where you have to attach it. It's already there, you're just opening it. So that's like the opening of the chairs and the tables. Now, the difference is, of course, that those are not for protection. This is for protection. But nevertheless, it could be compared to the roof of the sukkah, which is also for protection. But because it's already attached, it's considered to just be part of it, and you're not making something new. So the Chazon Ish suggests that the same thing might be true about a baby carriage. And this leads us also to the question, actually, you know what, let's leave it. We're going to come back to it later, the question of an umbrella, because an umbrella touches upon something which we haven't discussed yet. So let's go a little bit further, and we will get to that. Sorry. In terms of a strainer, so they used to put like a cloth on top of a bowl, and then use that cloth to strain wine or whatever, which is of course forbidden on Shabbos. Can't strain because you're doing boyer. Although as a side point, you are allowed to strain something that does not need to be strained. I mentioned that. If you want to strain clear water or clear wine just to make it more clear, that's not considered an act of boyer. And I don't know if we discussed this in this class, but many years ago we did, the question of straining your water through the Brita filters or any similar filter, which filters out impurities, but you can't really see them. So we said if it doesn't bother you to the extent that you would not drink water without filtering it, you're allowed to do it on Shabbos, because that's not considered a significant act of boyer, because it doesn't really make a difference. It's all clear before, it's all clear after. On the other hand, if it does bother, if you only drink filtered water, then it's not recommended that you filter it on Shabbos.
If I have a can, like a jug.
You have a jug?
It's a filter in the top.
Exactly.
You don't allow to put water in it?
If you sometimes drink water that is not filtered, then you can filter it on Shabbos. If you always only drink filtered water, then Rav Shlomo Zalman says you cannot filter it on Shabbos, because that's boyer. You're fixing it, you're cleaning it up. Which is why, if you would like to continue using a filter on Shabbos, you should make a point of drinking unfiltered water from time
But
to time.
if you have a filter under a sink, then you open just the water to drink. There's no problem with that, right?
I hear
That's
you.
a different process. I think that's reverse osmosis when you have it under the sink or something.
Why is that different?
I don't know. I just I think with Brita, it's just going through some sort of charcoal filter. Where I think I don't know how the other one works.
It is an interesting question, but I hesitate to say it's not allowed because the truth is that every sink has a filter.
Too loud.
Everything has a filter. At the end of the sink is a filter,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's called an aerator.
But it also has a filter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does act as the filter, but it also kind of makes the water come out nicer.
No, it's
Right.
only for not for. Rabbi, is that filter? It's not to filter the water. Just if God forbid it's rust in the pipe and coming outside, you don't drink it.
Okay, but it filters it. Something.
It gets there. We're talking about filter when you have that container and you put this filter the water.
Yes.
Not that rust is also filter. It's called.
I don't know. Why not?
Yeah, I don't think it's the purpose to filter those things.
So
You
said-
sure?
It's an aerator. Yeah, it's like taking a shower without a shower head. You know, the water just plops out, but you don't want that. You want the water to come out nice. So you put on the shower head. I think it's the same thing.
So, Rabbi, so you would don't allow to drink water in the process of Shabbat?
Filter on sink water. Let's see what Google thinks about that. Give me a moment.
When you don't have enough water pressure, what do you do? Take it out, or you clean it. It was full of scale and full of debris.
The Rabbi mentioned it's filtered anyway. Also, it filters non-rust. Not the water. It doesn't filter the water. If it's, God forbid, it's rusted in the pipe, and you should come into you outside to the cup. Then it filter. It's called also filter. Basically, to clean this water to make it fresh, you got a container with the top, you got a filter, really filter. Then you pour the water, and the filter the water. Talking about the other one, the faucet, it's only for rust, emergency. When you shut the water off in the main,
Right.
you see rust and stuff like that. Right? So that's what stop it. Not,
The stuff, all the debris.
but you still have see the rust water, but not the piece of metal. It will stop on the filter. It's not there. The rabbi said it's conserves filter too. So we have now we're checking if we're allowed to drink water from the faucet on Shabbat. Very interesting. Very interesting.
All right. I don't know. This article is too complicated for me. So I don't know. I always thought that the thing at the end was also accomplishing that it filters the water. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's only an aerator. But
It's not filter, right? It's just an emergency rust.
It's called an aerator. I mean, that's what they call it.
all right. I hear you. I'm not sure if you have a built-in filtration system and you only use water from that system, is that a problem? Maybe. I don't know. So you're not doing any particular act of boyer. It's not like when you put the water into your filter, you're doing a specific act of boyer. Here you're just turning the water on and the water is going through that system. So I don't know.
It's not boring.
Yoram says it's not borer.
Because we learn about if you have a water and you mix it with the water, it's because it's water liquid, it doesn't count. We studied something of that point. Remember?
No. I just said that if you filter water and you only drink filtered water, that is considered forbidden. Because even though it's clear before and it's clear after, but you don't drink unfiltered water. So for you, that's an act of boyer. Maybe not what I said, but nevertheless, that's how Shlomo paskins. So it's not so clear.
I drink water with no filter. They sell
Okay, a
the faucet.
person who drinks water without a filter,
But-
it's not a shayla. Just like you could do it in your water pitcher, you could do it in the sink.
By the law.
Question is, if a person only drinks with a filter and he installs a filter into the sink, is that a problem because the fact is he's filtering? Or is it not because he's not doing an active filtering, it's just automatically? Yes.
We don't install the filter. It's coming with the water. It's coming with the faucet. It's coming with that part.
Not necessarily. Sometimes you install it. You pay money to install it.
No. Rabbi, this small one is coming with manufacturing, part of the faucet.
Okay. Very good.
So it's consider a filter.
I'm talking about the ones that are installed, special, which you could get installed.
Big one. Okay. So I don't have that, but I have under the sink. Yes. Not for the main water. I have two. I have one. The small one for like a tea, but it's for the water. That filter, but for the water faucet, it's regular.
If you have one just for drinking water, that's exactly the question. That's what we're asking here. So I'm not sure about that. Okay, so talking about this whole straining system, we said that you are not allowed to put it up because it looks like you're making an ohel. Really, it also looks like you're going to strain with it on Shabbos, which is, of course, forbidden, but it's also, the Chazal considered it as if you're making an ohel. That's how they expressed the fact that it should be ulcer.
So we left with a question mark about the filter.
Yes. Okay. Now, if just going back to the dimensions of a ohel, which we mentioned before, it's only if it's going to be over a space that is a tefach. It's also important to mention that the ohel, for it to be considered an ohel, for it to be an ohel d'oraisa, has to have either a flat tefach or be flat within 3 tefachim. Within 3 tefachim from the top, either way, it has to spread out a tefach. Then it's considered a roof halachically. And by the way, to be an ohel d'oraisa, we said it needs a roof and it needs walls. Now, to be an ohel d'rabbanan, it could be just a roof, like we said before. It could even be a slanted wall that is not a tefach flat at all. Nevertheless, with Rabbanan, we shouldn't make that either.
If you take this door and put it in the wall, then you make your wall. We said that it's best.
If you lean it, if you lean it
remove the
over.
door and you put it on the wall.
Yeah. Well, there it's not your intention for protection. I'm talking about if you intend for it to protect. If you intend for it to protect, then it's still asma d'rabbanan. If you don't, then it's no problem. No problem. Okay, so in reference to this, we learned about a talus that is draped over a string, and it does not have a tefach opening. So you want to spread it out more. If it's tefach spread already that way before Shabbos, you can continue. Even if it's not a tefach spread, if it has a little handle that you're going to use to open it with and close, so then you can open it even if it's not a tefach spread, because the handle shows that it's meant to be open. So it's like it's already opened, considered as if it's open. Similarly, we said, if you have a kilas chasana, which was a kind of canopy, bed, that went over the bed, a canopy that went over the bed, if it's already made before Shabbos, you just have to pick it up and put it in place, that's also permissible, because you're not actually creating it. It's already there, you're just putting it into place. On the other hand, we said, if you want to put if you want to drape over a kind of protective thing over a bed, it already has a roof, and you want to put over walls that are sewn onto a flat sheet that's going to fit directly over that roof. So that's going to be a problem to put up, because as you put it up, it's probably going to stick up a tefach above that roof, and that's going to be considered like a temporary ohel. So that was going to be a problem. Okay, so now let's take a few minutes to talk about umbrellas. Now that we've spoken about all the possible things that could be compared to an umbrella. So basically, the Rabbi Yehuda says that you should not open umbrellas on Shabbos because he considers, first of all, that you have a roof with walls, counting the top part of the umbrella like the roof, and the sides like a wall. I mean, it's not really sides, but when it starts to slant like a wall. He says it could be even an Issur d'Oraisa. As far as the fact that you're allowed to open a sukkah roof, why is this different than a sukkah roof? He says because the sukkah roof is connected to the sukkah. This is not connected to anything. So there it's considered a secondary to the sukkah. Here it's not secondary to anything. Also, the sukkah roof does not have walls. It's just a roof. Here you want to create roof and walls. So that's why the Rabbi Yehuda is stricter. The fact that you might have, what else does he compare it to?
Okay.
Oh yeah, you can't compare it. He says to the foldable tables and foldable chairs, which are mutter, because there you're not intending to make a roof, and here you are. You're intending to make a protection. As far as the chuppah is concerned, where we said also it's mutter to set up, even if it makes a roof and walls, here it's different because over there you're not intending to make a protection. The chuppah is not for protection. The chuppah is a ritual, it's a ceremony. This is actual protection. So that's why the Chazon Ish says you cannot open it. You cannot even use it if it was already open before because of Maras Ayin. And that's it. And perhaps not even with a goy, because it could be an Issur d'Oraisa. You can ask a goy to do an Issur d'Oraisa, to do a Torah violation. That's all the Chazon Ish. The Chassam Sofer, if you remember, was not so much more lenient. He had different proofs because it's not permanent and you're just holding it, and it's not. Or all his reasons, I don't remember. That was one of them. Something that you hold in your hand is not considered a real ohel. That was one of them. He had other arguments. The Chassam Sofer was lenient. The minhag Yisrael is to be machmir. That's the minhag Yisrael, not to allow umbrellas on Shabbos. That being said, going back to the baby carriage, the Chazon Ish permits opening a baby carriage because opening the roof of the baby carriage because it is like the sukkah walls, although we said some question that and forbid it, but that was the Chazon Ish's
So about the parasol, the one for fashion, you're not using it for shelter?
Did we? Sounds vaguely familiar. I mean, I think the parasols are also for the sun, for protection from the sun. That is protection. So if it's just for show and not for any protection, maybe it is allowed. Because that's maybe like the chairs, you know what I'm saying? But how are you going to know if it's for protection or not? I'm not sure. Okay, then we discussed this unusual chiddush about a barrel being very big. And because it's very big, you cannot cover it, even if the walls are already made. That was the chiddush of the barrel. We didn't know exactly what very big meant, but that was the chiddush of the barrel. L'maisa, did we have any applications of that? Not so easy to find an application of that, because any cover, we said, that has a handle, so it looks like it belongs to that, you're allowed to put on. Like a garbage can, even if we consider garbage cans very big, if the cover of it has a handle, it looks like it belongs, then it's allowed. So, l'maisa, all it means that we could think of is, don't cover your garbage can with a non-designated cover. If you lost the cover, don't just take some random, cardboard piece of cardboard
But
and
wouldn't
cover
the garbage be mixed anyway?
garbage can. What?
I thought the garbage could be his muksa.
The garbage might be muktzah because it contains things that are muktzah.
Right.
But the can, So let's say there's no garbage in it. I mean, why would you want to cover it?
That's what I'm saying.
No, but even if it has garbage in it, you're allowed to cover something muktzah. You can't move something muktzah. You're allowed to cover something muktzah. That's the halacha, by the way. We'll get to it. So let's say you just want to cover it.
So you're saying the cover should be the one that's designated for that garbage.
Exactly. Should have a handle. Shouldn't just be designated. Should have a handle. If it's designated without a handle, that's a machlokes. The Taz says that it's okay. Other achronim say no. It has to look like it's designated. It has to look different and specially made for that.
So we lost the cover. You have to leave it open.
Yeah.
Or you take the garbage outside.
No, you can't move the garbage. It's muktzah.
I mean, honestly, when you
you
talk about moving garbage, first of all, if it's smelly and it bothers you,
Right.
that even if
But
it
what's
is
that
muktzah,
thing now? Just the covering it up.
yeah.
So covering it up is different than moving it. Though.
No, I'm talking about covering it up outside. I'm not
Okay.
If it's inside the house and it bothers you, the smell or whatever, you're allowed to pick it up and move it out.
Okay.
That's called graf shel re'i. You understand? In those days, people sometimes, maybe did their business in the house, kids or whatever. It's disgusting. You're allowed to take it out because Chacham didn't want you to have a painful Shabbos. Yes.
And the bucket for the garbage, you put plastic and then you put all the garbage inside. You're allowed to take the plastic and pick it up, and if it's smelly.
If it's disgusting. If it's disgusting
All
when it
garbage
bothers
is
you. Yes.
disgusting.
Yeah.
that-
It is interesting, though. It's been asked, the question's been asked, when does it become disgusting exactly? Because until the minute it's full, it wasn't disgusting. All of a
kept
sudden,
using it.
you kept using, all of a sudden now it's full, it's disgusting. What's so disgusting about it?
I'll tell you what is. You put something inside. This one is delicious. After overnight, it's disgusting.
I'm saying,
Smell.
a minute ago, before the garbage was full, it wasn't disgusting. You understand what I'm saying? Now you put in the last thing, it's full. Oh, disgusting. Anyway, but on the other hand,
You put food waste left on the table for Friday evening. By Saturday morning, it's smelling, Rabbi.
maybe
if you
yes
want or not.
and maybe no.
Also,
Yeah,
if the
your
garbage
AC
is
is
not
good,
full,
maybe it is, maybe it's not. But here's the thing. I heard the argument that's been said that your garbage may not actually be muktzah. A lot of your garbage is actually good stuff for people that need it. I'm saying a lot of stuff that we throw out could be used. A lot of food scraps
For sure.
is good animal food. Now, animal food is not muktzah. Even if you don't own a dog, because a lot of people do own dogs, it's not muktzah. So the argument's been made that maybe garbage is not really muktzah.
So, but are you looking at garbage as one unit that's been created? Or
Or
are you looking at it as a sum of individual units?
well, usually you go by a majority. So if it's a majority not muktzah, I don't think it would be muktzah. I don't
So there's
believe.
not heter out there to take your garbage out. it seems.
I've heard I had to take out the garbage, even if it's not disgusting. I'll give you an example of when it's not disgusting. So your garbage collection, let's say it happens on Monday.
Yeah.
Monday's Yom Tov. So Monday morning you realize that you didn't wheel out your bin
Yes.
to the street.
Right.
Now your bin is in front of your house. It's not in your house. So it's
Right.
not disgusting to you. It's where it belongs. That's the house. But you want it on the street so that they'll take it. We're talking about, it's Yom Tov anyway. You don't need an air, but air, whatever. There's no problem with carrying. But how can you wheel it? So I heard the argument that maybe it's not really muktzah anyway, because most of the things in there are probably usable for some purpose. Anyway, I'm not giving you a psak. I'm just giving you arguments that I've heard. All right. So hats. Do we wear hats on Shabbos?
Yes.
Are there any hats that we don't wear on Shabbos? Let's put it that way.
Looser,
with the
If the
flashlight.
brim is more than a tefach.
really baseball.
With the flashlight, the light.
I gotta measure my hat now. The brim is I think the brim is more than a tefach. It's close. It's definitely close. So can you give me a heter to wear this hat on Shabbos, please? Because I'd like to continue doing so.
You're not wearing it for
How do you know?
It's
If
soft.
they do, if they don't have a tefach, it's no problem. Don't worry if they do.
It's not that hard.
Okay, so it's not very hard. Some say it's only a problem if it's very hard, like a hard hat. Also, the Taz said,
Well, the Rosh Yeshivas, they wear that big round hat. What about those? That's probably even bigger.
some of them are pretty hard, actually. Some of those hats are pretty hard. But anyway, there's another hat that the Taz says that because the hats go all the way around, so clearly the parts of it that are on the side are not for protection. They're just for style. So therefore, the hat in general is considered for style. And we're not going to say, well, this is for style, this is for protection, that's for style. The whole hat is for style. On the other end, a baseball cap, which is directly over the eyes, basically, that's more problematic.
I see that all the time.
Backwards, yes.
Rabbi,
I do see it all the time.
Rabbi, I saw people put plastic on the hat when they go running.
No, that's something.
Plastic on the hat, if there's an Erev, is no problem.
Whatever is no problem.
No problem.
But baseball caps, yes or no? I mean, it's.
I wouldn't protest against those that do it because Rashi is of the opinion that says that all hats are no problem. Anything that your body holds up is not considered a real ohel.
The argument against it would be the hard flap in the front.
A hard flap, and that it's only over the front. It's not on the side, so it's not really for show.
There is a protection aspect.
Exactly, it's a specific protection aspect, and they're pretty hard.
But if you wear it backwards, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, backwards, not for protection.
So if he's.
I was going to say something.
I see it all the time in short.
Oh yeah, there is another issue, by the way, in a place with Adon Erev. There's an issue of wearing a hat that might be blown away by the wind, and then
Right,
you
and
may
you know, lift it
carry
with that little.
exactly.
Which I don't know if it's ever been used, but.
You don't know how to do that, Rabbi? If it blow?
If there's no Erev, then if it might come out, it's a problem. That's why they made it.
But and I do remember when I got my kid's hat for the bar mitzvah, whoever, they actually told them about that. By the way, it has this, and if this,
But they never used
it's
it.
only going to encourage them to start playing with it.
Exactly.
Actually, I was just thinking that cowboy hats are actually, I think, larger than a tefach, and some of them are pretty hard. So
Yes.
that might be
That
a
was-
problem.
I'll give an example. What is the minhag for baby carriage tops that are not
Oh
open?
wait, one second. Straw hats.
Ah.
Straw hats. Those are hard.
Not so hard. Not so hard. Cowboy hats are hard. Felt cowboy hats are hard. But again, according to the Taz, because they do go all the way around, it's not
I
forbidden.
like that.
I do want to answer this question. A fellow is asking: is the minhag for baby carriage tops that are not opened? I have seen that some people are machmer on that, but the minhag oilam, the general minhag that I've seen is that people are not machmer. If you stand outside shul and you just have a look at women coming and going, babies, people are opening and closing those tops all the time. So it seems that they are somech on the Chazon Ish, even though not everybody agrees with the Chazon Ish. Reb Moshe himself disagrees, actually. I didn't see it inside, but it was quoted. I saw it quoted that he says not to open and close the baby carriage tops unless they were a tefach for Shabbos. This Shulchan says the same thing. But in practice, I've seen that many people do use them. Most people do use them.
Does the Rav know what the minhag of Sfardim would be, or was, or is?
I don't know offhand, no. Sorry. But if you find out, please let me know.
Okay.
All right, my friends.
Sephardic tradition isn't to wear hats, though. It was more like
Right. Right.
or turban type thing, but not hats per se.
Right.
I don't.
I don't remember what the Mechaber said about hats in Shin Aleph. Do you remember, Rafal? Did he give any heter? I don't think he did. I think he was strict, actually, on hats. Was it Nun Aleph or
Right,
something?
what did the rep say? I heard you say my name. I went to go get a book.
About hats. About the Mechaber's opinion about hats.
Ooh, yeah.
I think the Mechaber was strict about hats. And the Mechaber is strict about hats. Yeah. The Mechaber is strict. I don't know what the Sephardic custom is. I said, no, I'm okay. All right, Rabbi Isai, so definitely next Monday is off because I'm going to be out of town. But maybe we'll take off both days if people are going to be away. You're away?
Not sure.
Not sure?
I thought you were
Not
gonna
away?
see snow.
Rafal, are you away next week or you're in town?
No, I think I'm here.
Small?
I'm here.
You're here. Yassi, David, Daniel?
I'm around.
I'll be. I'll
I
be
think.
here.
You'll be there.
If they want the computer, they can do it.
I'll be Rabbi. I'll be here.
You'll be here. Okay, so I'll let you know about Tuesday. But
Okay.
Monday, definitely not. Okay, all the best. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good night.
And a good Sunday.
So Tuesday, is that when we're coming back?
Tuesday, maybe.
So Monday, definitely no. Tuesday, maybe yes.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, pleasure. All the best. Bye.
Night.
Night.